You're listening to Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast.
When your heart is aching and your world is shaking, don't give up. No, don't give up.
Hello and welcome to Oh My Health, There Is Hope, the podcast. I'm your host, Jana, and today we're here with David Hennessey. 20 years ago, David Hennessey created a holistic personal development program called the Wonder Technique that has continued to evolve over the years. David has presented the Wonder Technique at hundreds of workshops and seminars. His formal training is in psychology and nutrition, and he has traveled over 20 countries and lived in 3 long-term. His goal is to give the fundamental tools of personal development to everyone on the planet. And I want to help you do that because I feel like personal development is for everybody.
It is. Thank you very much, Jana, for inviting me on your show. It's an honor.
It's totally my pleasure. And I know we've had a problem with scheduling, but I'm so glad you're here. First thing I ask all of our guests to do is share a story of hope. So do you want to share your story of hope with us?
I do. And life brings us some moments in time that we don't always anticipate. And sometimes it's the outcome of the experience that we have that changes our lives. And back in the 1990s, when my mom was really quite ill with cancer, I spent time with her, Jana, and I was helping her kind of figure out how she'd apply what she was being requested to do in her life by the doctors, the nutritionists, the surgeons. And during that process, I wasn't the only person with her, but during that process, and as she moved towards recovery, I realized that there was something that I was really good at, and that was making complex things more simple. And in my own life, prior to that moment in time, I wasn't very good at managing my own health and well-being. I was the kind of young man who, when I woke up in the morning, I had that feeling as if I had the flu, that nervous tension in the body. Like A, you didn't want to get out of bed, and B, you didn't feel like you had the energy to get out of bed. And I realized that I needed to organize my life. And even though I had a lot of education on health and well-being, and I'd gone through university in psychology, I started to create what ultimately ended up being the Wonder Technique by organizing the information that I'd learned, a lot of it science-based, some of it personally based, and making a program for my own mind to help me take care of myself. And ultimately, I ended up over almost 21 years now sharing with people, mostly in person, through audiences, both in where I started off in Canada, even though I was born in Ireland. And now over the last year or so, I'm being very grateful to have the opportunity with people like yourself to share on podcasts and share more of the simple tools that I share in terms of helping people through using their mind and their body to live a better life.
I love it. And I love what you've done with that journey. So I was checking out your website and I found it to be fascinating, but I want you to maybe tell us a little bit about what the Wonder Technique is.
Yes. And I can give people the foundation of the Wonder Technique is really quite simple, and everything expands from that. The Wonder Technique itself is actually an acronym. And I was looking for a way to manage in my own mind because I get quite nervous when I'm sharing information. And I was never a person that had ever presented stuff in public until life literally brought me to that experience in time. What I had done in university is to help me memorize things. I'd made a lot of acronyms. And when I was sitting down looking at, Jana, on all the information that I wanted to collect for my own health and well-being and potentially at the time share with other people, I was looking at concepts like sleep. This is 20 years ago when sleep wasn't as big a deal as it is now. The importance of exercise, we've known of for a long time. The importance of our state of mind, foods, outside activity, hydration. And when you look at the Wonder Technique, the W simply stands for water and the importance of hydration in our human body. And there's multiple levels, but my goal is with the acronyms for people to say, okay, have I had a wonderful day? They can just go through the 6 steps. It's that simple. So water, outside activity, no worries, that's the N, it's the state of mind. D is for delicious, nutritious foods, because it's great if it's nutritious, but people ain't going to eat it unless they find it delicious. There's many choices. And then E is easy one, E for exercise, or is for rest, which includes all the routines associated with good sleep. And when I can say to people, look at that acronym. There's so much depth to it, but on a simple basis, it's enough for somebody to say each day at the morning to plan their day, and at the end of the day to say, did I do all those 6 things? Because they all impact our state of health and well-being. We're never at a good state of mind in terms of no worries or peace of mind if we didn't spend time with family or friends engaging in conversation. So everything can dovetail inside of that.
Well, I noticed on your website too, you talk a lot about, which is what you teach on, is personal development.
Yes.
And that means so many, it's such a broad, because literally personal development is, we're evolving every single second of the day.
Yes.
What does personal development mean to you?
This is a very good question. Personal development to me is ongoing process. It never does end. And you're moving towards a positive experience in your life. And that it's in multiple domains, personal, professional, moving towards improving yourself in areas that you personally would like to improve, not from an external focus, but from an internal focus. And having the habits in place that empower you to be able to achieve those goals. So it is very personal in the sense that we all decide what we want to do in our lives, hopefully. A lot of people are influenced, Jana, about people outside, but I say we get motivation when it's coming from inside, an internal locus of control. The thing, if people say, you know what, I can't really, for example, if I was talking about exercise, we know we need to take care of ourselves on a daily basis to move our bodies, looking at the idea of movement as against a particular exercise. And people say, well, you know what, I can't really get myself motivated to do, and they list off what they're doing. And I say, well, that's because you're choosing something you don't want to do. Find an activity that you love to do, that you will jump out of bed to do. Like, I mean, if somebody says, I'm going for a hike, David, want to come? I'm there. Like, I love rock climbing. Yeah, you're available, I'll make it. So when it's something that I love to do, and the side effect, Jana, the side effect is the exercise. I'm carrying a big pack, I'm walking uphill, I'm using my lungs, I'm using my body. That's hiking, but I'm spending time in nature, fresh air, I'm relaxed, I'm either alone or I'm with friends. All of it is a package impact on my life. So I say to people, figure out what it is that works for you. If you love running and you take good care of your body when you run, maybe that's what you need to do. So it's about really finding out your own personal development, what it is that you want to focus on to achieve your own goals in your life. Because each of us is very special in this world. That's something we fail to recognize, that we have all something to contribute. There is no exception.
I love that. And I that's part of my message too, is finding that zone, that purpose that you were meant to be in, and standing in that, because your whole life will change. And I love that you're saying it's definitely unique to all of us. So I remember being shamed because I didn't want to go to the gym. I had gym shame, right? People are like, wait, you don't work out? I hate it. I dread it. I can't even think about it, but I love to dance, and I'm stuck at my desk all day long. On camera, right? So I yell at my sound system in the house between calls to flip on the music, and I stand up and I move and I get going, and it lightens my mood, gives me energy, and I know I'm exercising at the same time. And so people can do something as simple as that.
Exactly. And then on top of that, if you know what, we want to have a weight bearing exercise, it sounds, oh, what did I do? Well, you know what? You incorporate into your life habits, like when you're walking around from the grocery store, you're leaving it the grocery store, you carry you carry stuff. You move stuff around. You don't, like, it's better to carry a suitcase than it is to have it wheeling behind you when you're traveling. I mean, it's all those little things, the compounding effect of our actions every day, that keep us strong. Because when you look at the history of human beings, you'll see that we didn't have the conveniences. We have a lot of conveniences, and we live very easy lives right now compared to 40, 100. But we don't always recognize that. And some people, like, for example, because now I live in France, and people talk about, wow, how come there's so many centenarians in France? Well, the reason being is that a lot of these people that are old now, they grew up, for example, even in small cities, even in like Paris and that, where there's a lot of apartment buildings, Jana, that have no elevators.
Right.
They walk up 3, 4, 5 floors with their groceries each day, because they went to the market each day. They picked fresh fruits and vegetables. That plays all into the holistic approach to taking care of our health and well-being, is that you're paying attention to the foods that you eat. But their life was full of activity. And I remember years ago reading a book about the Okinawan people in Japan. And what was unique about the Japanese people is they've had birth certificates for a long time, so they could prove the longevity of the people. But one of the things they used to do which is something you will adore as well, is part of their culture was dancing.
Yeah.
Part of their culture, gardening. And of course, when the side effect of the gardening, they had fresh foods. And also they were very community orientated, and the people, as they got older in society, were seen as great contributors because of their experience. Sometimes we don't always acknowledge that nowadays, but life always brings us experience. And everybody that's listening today, and I appreciate your time, to those people that are listening, you have something in your life, even, it can be just a few years into your life, your teenage years, something you've had as an experience that will help other people on their path. I believe that's the reason why we're here. We're here to help other people on their path. It's not just our experience, it's everybody's experience.
I agree. And one of the things that we talked about before we started recording was that you created this change, this move in your life later in life. You weren't a teenager. It wasn't like,
That's right.
We go to college, we decide. I did the same thing. And I literally want to be the voice to people to say, it is never too late to step into your purpose.
Exactly.
And sometimes we don't even know what that is until something happens that makes it very clear to us. I know you started also later. What made you literally take that breath and move into this at that stage?
In fact, because I was, quote unquote, more introverted throughout all my life, it was a response to the desire for other people to hear more of what I have to share. Because the first ever workshop that I did was actually 160 students, adolescents in a high school, which is a very unusual group for you to speak to as a first time. And it was a privilege that I got brought in to speak with them, because they were bringing in at that time in Canada some new programs to help the youth plan their lives. And it was like a wellness program that one of the chefs was involved in. And he heard about my work, and I used a lot of images from my own experience in life, from traveling in the Himalayas, traveling in different parts of the world, visiting Jordan, all those areas. And that was when I found the reaction from other people. I saw the work I have has value, particularly because I really take a simplified approach, Jana. I really do. I boil things down to simplicity. Like I will say to people, if you want to repair a relationship or keep a relationship working, you've got to communicate in person as much as you can to that person and take the time to listen. This sounds so basic, but it's incredibly powerful, and it builds up over time. You pay attention, you listen, you share, you learn about the other person. It's like when some people think on, okay, one time in the year, I'll do something really special for Valentine's Day for, the person that they're with. No, it's not that. It's the rolling throughout the year, the fact that you're there, you're present, you make them a priority. Well, why wouldn't you? And you work on that. So it's every action that we take every day builds up. There's the reverse that can happen. If you don't take the actions that make you improve in your own personal development, to nourish your relationships, to nourish your work, it's like we go the opposite way. And I'm still doing that every single day. I frame my days, morning and at night, as to where my mind is at, what I'm going to experience, and how I want to look at the world, because I'm no exception. If I didn't take those actions every day, I can, shall I use the word regress, go back, like I can lose track. It happens. So there's action. I'm always involved in the focus of my life.
By the way, I have to do the exact same thing, because there's so much going on up here that if
Yes.
I don't focus, I can't do anything well. So I literally set that intent for what my day is going to be like.
For sure.
And I try not to look at the shiny objects might
Yes.
start popping out throughout the day, and stay on track, which what happens is I get that task done very quickly when I stay on track, which opens up so much time for me to look at all those other shiny objects.
Yes. Yes. And it's actually, focus and concentration is a skill. It is a skill because we can all learn it, that actually very few people have. This is some of the things that I've been surprised about over the years, because my dad once told me, and of course he told me when I was a teenager and I totally ignored him, was the whole idea that, David, there's this thing called Parkinson's law. And I said, what is that? And he told me, work expands to the time allotted. I was like, what does he mean by that? But I experienced that in university. When I was going through university, most of the years that I went through university, with the exception of one semester, like 3 months, I was working outside. the university, meaning I was doing my schoolwork. I worked at night. I worked on the weekends to pay for my schooling. And the one semester when I received some extra money as a gift and I didn't work in the evenings and the weekends, my grades went down because I was really less focused. But when I was going to university and I knew, okay, I've got to get this homework done because I got to go to work, it kept me focused. So Parkinson's law is so true. And people, we, all of us have to engage and say, I just have this point in time. A lot of people get really productive just before they're going on vacation. That's an application of that because they know they can't do it after. And they really need, it's very, very important that you frame something that you don't take your work on vacation to honor yourself and to those people that you're with. So you can really get good at focusing when you create a frontier for yourself, when you understand, for example, and this is part of the wonder technique I share, is how where your energy level is when your best point of the day is, because people have different chronotypes. Some people are morning larks, some people are night owls. When you understand where you're, what works really well for you, you can focus better. You don't want to follow the path again as what other people suggest. They say, oh, I'm great. I get up at 5 a.m, I'm full of energy. But what if you're a person that, I was on a person's show recently and he said, he's a songwriter. I'm really, really good in the evenings, terrible in the morning. He knows though where his niche is because that has made him successful.
Most really creative people are evening people. Like that's when their brain like wakes up. So I totally get that. I also want to talk about your first, I don't know if it's your first book, but it's the first one I found on your website and I loved it. The title I'm going to order it because it looks phenomenal. And this is a huge, powerful message for me that I try to get out, but how to find and follow your purpose. And I know a lot of people think their purpose, like they have a shallow purpose, and that shallow purpose will never get you where you need to go. You have to really dig in and build that. The way I describe it is when you go to the gym after New Year's, and because it's a New Year's thing to do, right? Go to the gym, make a commitment to yourself to get into shape, and then you kind of drop off in a couple of weeks. But who's still at the gym in June? The bride who's envisioned herself in that wedding dress, who's getting into shape and has envisioned that since she was a little girl. And she knows, like, she shows up every day. She's putting, because her purpose and vision for that goal is so powerful. Tell us a little bit about how to find and follow your purpose.
Well, I love this because it's so, so important. When you want to find your purpose, I've suggested people to look at their own lives because I believe people have that inside of them. I will say, for example, I use the word purpose to help remind people, but inside of that, what is it you have perpetual dreams? What are you always dreaming about? When you're not got a task to do, what is it you love to think about? What is it you like to dream about? That's a clue as to what your purpose is in life because we're obsessed with these ideas. What is it that you love to do for those people listening where there's never enough time for you to be still involved in it? And you lose track of time. And you can look back to when you were a young child and you can connect the dots to this moment in time. It may not be the identical habit or action or experience, but it could be that when you loved spending time alone creating things as a child, maybe it was drawing pictures, maybe it was building things, but there's a line that goes to this moment in time. In my own life, it's always been taking things apart and trying to understand them. Ever since I was a little kid, I used to take my toys apart, everything. I remember, I shouldn't have been doing it. I took apart an electric light when it was still plugged in. I wanted to know how things worked, and I wanted to understand them in the simple terms possible. And that has continued throughout my whole life. And people, if they want to understand what their purpose is, they can go back and say, well, what is it that I really love to do? And it sounds so simple. And you have to detach it from, it is important that we have a source of income, but you have to take that away from it as a reason why you're going to do it. Because some people, Jana, what they do is they build their lives, for example, musicians, different people at first, where they have another source of income, but they continue to do their own expression of themselves into the world. So not to feel like some people feel, got to give up the corporate life. There's great corporate opportunities in the world and they want to start their own business. But starting your own business sometimes can actually take you off your purpose because running a business, as you know yourself, there's a lot more dynamics to it than just your purpose. So if somebody wants to be a coach, being a coach, spending time with people, but there's a whole world behind that you may not actually enjoy. So you may, for example, decide that you're just going to volunteer your time with local people where you have an opportunity to share and nourish their lives. And that could be part of your purpose or be your purpose. And then you continue doing other things outside that area of your life that fund what you're doing. They allow you to do that. So I like people to think about it's not always about building a business. It's about focusing on something that you have a talent for and then expressing that into the world.
By the way, David, I would take that one step further and say it's
Please.
rarely about building a business when you find your purpose. That doesn't mean that you cannot make an amazing career out of it, but it rarely is how it starts. So for instance, I did an interior design business most of my life. That's what I was, is a very famous interior designer till I got sick and got derailed and realized that as I was healing, what my real purpose was and being open to receiving a change. Had I not done that, I don't even know where I would be right now, to be really honest. So you also have to be open into receiving what that message is to you. But I literally am not only doing my purpose with passion, it drives me, it wakes me up every morning feeling energized and like I hop out of bed. I'm so excited to know the people I'm going to share their messages today. So when they're looking for their purpose, a lot of people are looking at other people's purposes. Looks like fun.
Yeah, this is very true. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not if it's not your purpose. I'm telling you, the hardest thing in the world that may look like something I could never, I'm like, I cannot do that. That looks horrible. But the person who's living that purpose, doing what they want to do, it's their joy.
Yes. Yes. They, as you say, they're connected to what it is. And there's an example here for people listening. You know this already, Jana, is that when you have a relationship with somebody, you know it's a good relationship, it's a healthy relationship. After you spend time with that person, you feel more energized. You don't feel a depletion of your energy. You can take that same concept. This is typically how myself, David, thinks, and you can bring it into the work that you do. And if you believe that you're on purpose, you won't feel less energized when you're finished doing it. Like, and I lived that experience. It is now 9 o'clock at night here. It's actually after 9, 20 past 9 here in France. And I'm still passionate about my work. I'm still available mentally to be with you here, even though it's later in the day where most people might have just stopped off, because it's my passion. So you can tap into that energy and you feel good about it all the time. So that's for somebody to look, if they're thinking, this sounds really good. And then they're looking at other people, like you said, and it's like, but you can't get yourself motivated to do it. And I had a phone call with somebody recently, and she was saying, oh, David, you could do this in your business and that. And I really appreciate her sharing this information with me. But I said, I will take the time afterwards and I'll reflect on it. And I reflected on it, and it doesn't jive with me. You know, if that's the right phrase. It's a great idea, but it's not me. So my business, my work in the Wonder Technique is an expression of who I am. And several of my friends, they say, David, you know, that you are the Wonder Technique. It is who you are. So that's the same kind of idea. For people who are on their purpose, it is part of who they are. It's the gift that they have to bring.
That's exactly how it starts to feel too, when you get in there. And people ask me, what's the hardest part of changing careers, hardest part of building something new? There was no hard part. Yes, we definitely had to pivot and make changes, but none of it was hard because I was in my purpose. It was like great. Yeah. So when you get to that space, you're really going to recognize it. You don't need anyone to tell you. You're like full steam ahead. This is where I need to be.
Yes. And it's something inside of ourselves where we feel like, for me, it's 20 years I've been doing this, and I don't see myself stopping. I don't see a reason to stop, unless my goal is achieved where everybody has the fundamentals of, you know, health and wellness and personal development in their lives, which would be fantastic, but it's unlikely. So my path is to continue this whole process. And I'm grateful for what I have to share, that there is people that want to learn what I have to share.
And you're absolutely right. We'll never get there. It's not a destination.
Yes,
it's exactly. A journey. And as we blow up that dream and it gets bigger and bigger, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. We never arrive there. Thank goodness. Like, that's the whole beauty of it. If my goal is to finish medical school and I finish it doesn't mean I'm over. It means now I have a bigger dream. Like there's more, there's so much more. So continuing your personal development and growing, it's a beautiful journey, and doing it with someone else is key. Like if I do not wake up in the morning and do all this by myself. I definitely hire coaches and I work with people to inspire me, motivate me, get me thinking outside of my box and understanding what's going on. And David, your program is a lot like that. So how do people connect with your program so that if they're wanting to start finding out more about themselves, in raising the level of their personal development and going out and living in their purpose, how would they connect with you?
They would connect with me through the core source I have on the internet, which is thewondertechnique.com, as it sounds. And the first taste they can have for there's a lot of free materials I give to people who subscribe for my newsletter. There's the 10 tips for health and happiness. There's mini motivational cards that are just wonderful little cards that people can share and give away, and their introduction to a taste of what my work is like, so people get a sense of it. For example, in the 10 tips guide, there's one of the things I talk about is to avoid being an eternal student. That's really, really important, that when we learn something new, if somebody grabs something from this podcast or from another one of your podcasts, that they take the time to practice it in their life, test it out if it's going to help them, embrace it, continue, or check out something else. So I want to remind people to help clear a bit of the clutter, because it is hard nowadays to understand what things are going to make your life better.
I agree 100%. We are definitely going to put all of David's links in our show notes that you can easily grab them and participate. And I definitely would grab his 10 tips guide, because I'm going to grab it, because I'm always evolving and expanding. So I would go there and grab that on his website. We'll put all the links in there. But David, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Jana, thank you very much. And thank you for everybody listening. I appreciate this opportunity.
Thanks for listening to the Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast. Make sure to visit Jana's website, bestholisticlife.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, or listen there, so you'll never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about the show, that'll help too. Let's change the world together, one health expert at a time. Looking forward to seeing you next time.